But Washington and decision makers often look at the margins of these results to try to glean how people are feeling in this time. And first and foremost, the level of breakneck speed that, and not just speed, the level of just breaking that this administration and that Elon Musk is doing right now does have the power to transcend party. It does have the power to transcend party. And if a historically 30 plus Republican seat, if a seat that normally goes to Republicans by 20 points or 30 points, then goes to Republican, even if they still win, but if it goes down to 10 points, they know that they are in deep trouble. And why does that matter? Because a lot of these people only respond to one thing, which is whether they can hold on to power or not. And one of the reasons we're in this situation is because a lot of Republicans were more afraid of a primary election, losing a primary election, than they were in actually advocating for their people. And if you want evidence for that, just know that these Medicaid cuts that they're going for are actually going to affect rural Americans some of the most. Some of the places that vote the reddest stand to be hurt the most by what Republicans are trying to do. And so understand, we're talking about rural hospital closures, we're talking about all sorts of...
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Very interesting what she's saying. Very, very interesting. This is proving the point that I've been making for quite some time, when people like the Young Turks and others have kept saying that we don't have a democracy. And they point to Democrats ignoring their base, right? They have something that is overwhelmingly supported by their base. Let's say the Gaza situation. And the Democrats feel totally comfortable just completely ignoring them and doing what they want to do, not what the base wants. Unlike the Republican Party, who doesn't do that. But the interesting thing with the Republican Party is they are able to inject into their base the things to be concerned about, right? So they inject all these culture war ideas and like, oh my goodness, the trans, whatever, right? And their base falls for it. So it's kind of this self-fulfilling prophecy or a feedback loop. You know, I have a base, so from the Republican perspective, I have a base that is struggling with healthcare, struggling to pay rent, struggling to pay their mortgage, right? These are the kitchen table issues that my base is struggling with. But those things are difficult or inconvenient for me to address. Maybe some of the solutions would actually hurt my donors, so I don't want to do that. So what I do is I distract them from the things that really matter, and I keep feeding them, you know, oh, trans people and transhumans and this and that and CRT and DEI and blah, 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 right? I feed them sort of outrage that is convenient for me, because I can easily say, I'm going to ban DEI programs. I'm going to kick out these DEI or CRT books out of the schools, right? That stuff is easy. With the flick of a pen, I can just, I'm creating, manufacturing fake problems that allow me to easily, quote unquote, solve them and get the political wins, right? So that's how they're able to not address issues that really matter to their base, while at the same time being looked at as more effective in getting things done. Because look at right now, Trump is doing a lot of stuff that the base wants. But the reason the base wants it is because that's what the GOP has sort of conditioned them to focus on. And it's not just the GOP, it's their mouthpieces in right-wing media, right? The same thing, not the part where the Democrats create the outrage in the base, but the same effect where you have a base that is, quote unquote, controlling their representatives, as they should. That's the point of this representative government, right? The people that we elect, they're supposed to represent our interests. That's happening on the right. The only problem is that the right-wing elites have manufactured the interests of their base, right? The base is just going along with what they've been fed and saying, you know, CRT, DEI, whatever, right? But if we just eliminate the part where the elites are constructing the narrative, right? Just eliminate that part and look at what the base on the left what they want and what they're concerned about, and recognize that they can utilize the same tactic that is being used on the right to have their representatives be more responsive to their needs. Now, even though the right-wing elites have manufactured the outrage, there is some level of truth to the outrage, meaning they've been fed on a daily basis, DI this, DI that, CRT this, right? Anti-white, whatever. They're hearing this over and over again, so they generally lock in and focus on these things. So if the Republicans don't address those things, they will get punished, right? But of course they will address, that's the whole point, create these things which are easy for them to quote unquote resolve so they get the political wins, right? AOC basically illustrated that we do in fact have a democracy and that the left had the ability to be respected by the Democratic Party, right? To not be ignored by the Democratic Party, using the exact same strategy that she's recommending right now to use on the Republicans in Florida. I'm going to lay it out. The reason why the Democrats ignore their base is based on the same thing that AOC is pointing out and the same thing that I've been pointing out for years. All these people care about is power. It's not a competition. You can focus on, the Republicans are more obsessed with power. Whatever, it's not a competition. That's not what it's about, who's worse, right? If you're voting for Democrats, you have to understand what they care about is power. In order to maintain that power, they need your votes. The reason why this uncommitted movement was not effective was because the Democrats behind the scenes saw that there was a path where they could win the election without these people's votes. They simply was not enough of them for the Democrats to get terrified. The Democrats need to be terrified before they'll start listening. What AOC is illustrating is making the Republicans terrified when they see that in a deeply red district, the margin got so close. That means if things keep up on that trajectory, the sort of leaders of the Republican Party, right, the biggest names of the Republican Party, they are now at risk, even in deep red districts. They can't let that happen. They've got to change course. What do you think happens when Democrats in deep blue areas lose by major margins? Or, like she just illustrated, if they win but they barely scrape through, right? If the Democrats are afraid of losing power, and keep in mind, and I haven't really heard anyone talk about this, but the way I view things is very different than what you're going to hear in Majority Report, the Young Turks, Brian Tyler Cohen, right? They look at it as the Democrats lost the last election. I don't agree with that. They won, right? What do I mean by that? All the leaders, they're still there, right? They lost the presidency. That's it, executive branch, right? I know they don't have the House or the Senate, but the point is they're still in government. They're still getting the same paycheck they were getting before. They still have the ability to insider trade, right? They're still in a position of power, right? Losing power would mean them getting voted out, right? But that only happened at the executive level, right? The key Democrats are still in power. In fact, they're on vacation, right? Right now, they don't have the House or the Senate. They're not in the executive branch. So they have a great excuse to why they can't do anything, right? So they get to basically sit on their ass for the next 4 years. And the worse that Trump gets, the better it is for them. Because next election, after people are frustrated and fatigued with all the chaos of Trump, Democrats can come in and like, it's time for a change, right? And I think in this moment, I think they feel confident that Like, they're looking at the chaos right now and they're like, okay, this is actually pretty good. As long as our democracy does not completely fracture, that we still have an election. I think we might see a little different approach when the Republicans start attacking the elections, which I'm pretty sure is coming. Because if they mess with the elections, that's where it's a problem, because then you could see key Democrats losing by the Republicans cheating. But outside of that, as long as they feel confident that it's going to be a normal election, they probably feel confident that they can win. And things being bad is actually good for them, right? Because they can sit back and say, see, you guys didn't vote for us. Next time around, you better vote for us. Otherwise, things are going to get even worse than they are now, right? This simple rule, I think, applies to the Republicans and the Democrats in this country. In order to get them to be responsive to the needs of the base, they need to be shook. They need to be terrified. Right? They need to feel like they are potentially at a risk of losing power. AOC just illustrated it, right? You gotta listen to me. She's telling you. The only thing is she's telling you as an attack on the Republican Party, right? But why do you think that same strategy wouldn't work against Democrats, right? I don't think it's very complicated for the left to get a lot of things done, to get a lot of their things that they want passed. The difficulty is in getting the numbers. You need to build up a movement, right? That's strong enough, that's genuine enough, that is immune from the influencer class, which is going to try to capture any movement that the left comes with. Some influencer class figure or influencer class wannabe figure is going to try to dominate. And unfortunately, the genuine article is going to get overshadowed because the influencer people, they're going to do anything to get views and followers, and they're going to say all the stuff that people want to hear, right? And if you're operating in good faith, the truth is not going to be as sexy as somebody just saying whatever, right? So you're going to get people like Jank doing a fake run for president. You get people like Cornel West. We don't want to get into that. And other people that were running for president. You're going to get people like that, right? Unserious actors trying to sell books or whatever. And they're going to monopolize the energy on the left like they've been doing over and over again. And you're going to get out in the streets and get all your numbers and then find out that the movement that you're part of has been captured by someone who's focused on their own self-interest and not of the community. You need to get a strong movement, build a movement that's immune to that effect. Someone who's really serious about helping others, making this country stronger, moving this country forward. And that movement needs to swell to such a level that the Democrats have no choice but to pay serious attention to that movement. That's all it takes, man. It's really very simple. You just need to get those numbers. Once you have those numbers and the Democratic Party gets terrified, I mean, it's amazing to me that people don't understand this, right? What do you think the Democrats will do if there's a movement that is so massive that it's an uncertainty whether even key Democrats can hold on to their positions? Think about that. Top Democrats, in a moment where they get nervous, not about losing the presidency, but losing their jobs, being voted out of office. What do you think happens when top Democrats are afraid of losing true power, right? Which is to be completely out of government, voted out. You think they're just going to sit by and just be like, well, whatever? They're going to change course, right? That's what AOC is telling you, right? But she's saying it to Republicans. Why do you think Democrats wouldn't behave in the same way? These people will be in office for decades and decades and decades. You think they're going to just walk away from that? They're not. They're going to fight to stay in power. They're not going to fight for you, but they will fight for themselves. When they become threatened, that's when they start listening. And until then, you can yell and scream all you want. Doesn't really matter. Why would it? You really think the people, these politicians, they're in government for us and not for themselves? If so, I think I might have a bridge to sell you.